Now, a new report out is showing just how disastrous the opioid epidemic actually is. According to the Commission on Combating Drug Addiction and the Opioid Crisis, the United States is now losing 142 Americans every day from addiction or from drug overdose. Now, that is the equivalent, of course, and this is disastrous, of the 9/11 death toll every 3 weeks. Jesus. Now, the report was, of course, released in accordance with an executive order signed in March by President Trump to study ways to combat and treat the scourge of drug abuse, addiction, and the opioid crisis. Now, in its interim report, the Commission's first and foremost urgently recommended the President declare a national emergency under either the Public Health Service Act or the Stafford Act. Now, why would they do that? Well, they argue that since 1999, the number of opioid overdoses in America have quadrupled. According to the CDC, not coincidentally, in that same period, the amount of prescription opioids in America have quadrupled as well. So what they're talking about here is, look, man, we've got a prescription drug problem. I mean, we're looking at overdoses of prescription drugs that have quadrupled. And, oh, look at that. The amount of drugs that are being prescribed also quadrupled. There's something there. There seems to be a little bit of a correlation here. So maybe we need to actually do something about it. So I'm not sure exactly what kind of powers that would grant the president or the White House or the executive branch under the national emergency or under the Public Health Service Act or the Stafford Act. But I'm not sure that that's the solution. Now, they continue. This is an epidemic that all Americans face because here's a grim reality. Americans consume more opioids than any other country in the world. Now, that's interesting, right? Now, I want to bring up how it's kind of amazing that we have this war on drugs, right? We've got this war on drugs, and yet we seem to be losing. We don't seem to be winning this. We're not winning here. In fact, there is actually no winning going on when it comes to the war on drugs. Now, you know why? It's because we specifically focused on things like marijuana instead of prescription opioids, which are actually much, much more powerful than marijuana. The real killers of Americans are perfectly legal and are prescribed willy-nilly. Isn't that a little strange? Now, look, one of the criticisms of the Trump administration, and there are many, is that despite his promises, he's actually done nothing towards actually going to fight the opioid epidemic. In fact, I go back to that CNN report where there was this Donald Trump guy that would go to all the rallies, would play his guitar, and CNN talked to him, and he lost his son. He lost his son to opioids, to drug addiction. And he's like, the reason that I followed Donald Trump is, it's not because I hate black people. It's not because I'm economically insecure. It's because he says he's actually going to do something about it. And I believe him. I believed him more than I believed Hillary Clinton, who I didn't think was going to do anything. I thought he came and he told me, I'm going to do something. I'm going to help people like your son, get away from the opioid addiction. Well, what has he done? He hasn't really done anything. In fact, he rarely talks about it unless it is, of course, to say, drugs are pouring over the border, that's why we need a wall. Well, it's not going to stop the people who are already addicted. In fact, it's not going to stop drugs at all. And, well, look, you might think that I'm complaining, of course, without any solutions, but I actually do have some solutions. But one of the other things that Donald Trump says he's going to do said he was going to do or to help the opioid addiction that isn't actually going to work is that he's got Jeff Sessions in the Department of Justice basically doubling down on the failed war on drugs. Do you think that's going to stop the opioid addiction? No, it's not. Because the war on drugs, again, they're going after illegal drugs. They're not actually going after the prescriptions that are getting people addicted and hooked. And then when, of course, their prescription runs out, they're already addicted, and they end up having to go to heroin or something stronger. That's not going to stop them. That's not going to prevent addiction. Okay? Going after or doubling down in the drug war and putting up your stupid wall It's not going to do a goddamn thing. Let's just take this thing that we've done for decades and keep trying it. I'm sure it'll eventually work out. Now, the report noted, and this is very important, it said that one of the biggest obstacles to opioid crisis involves access to healthcare services designed to treat and combat addiction. Now, that is something that Donald Trump in his budgets had cut out. They actually made cuts to these programs and also promised enormous cuts to Medicaid. They said over 40% of people with a substance use disorder also have a mental health problem, but less than half of those people receive treatment for either issue. The reasons for these treatment gaps are many, including lack of access to care, fear and shame of discrimination, and lack of motivation to seek treatment. Also, I would assume possible arrest, because, again, drug war, right? Now, you know what would solve all that stuff, or at least some of that? Well, number one, you end the war on drugs, and you institute universal health care. Remember, a lot of these people, they can't get health care, they can't afford it. Well, I can't afford to go and get help with my addiction. I want to get help, I can't afford it. Well, what do? I don't know. I'm out of options. And if I tell somebody, I might get arrested. Like if I'm actually doing illegal drugs, if it gets to that point. So these are significant problems. And what is Trump doing about it? Nothing. In fact, the replacement plan that he recently had pushed, and that he still wants to push, right? Even though Senate Republicans have no interest. They're like, we're done with this. We're going to go to tax reform. Jesus Christ. We said we were going to repeal Obamacare. We're not even interested in doing that anymore. Fuck it. President Trump says, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not done with that because I still want you to do it. Well, that plan would have cut Medicaid funding by $772 billion over the next 10 years. As Rolling Stone noted, Medicaid currently treats 30% of the nation's addicts. So you're going to cut a program that actually helps people who are addicted. President doesn't really care. Look, he didn't care about that. He uses people in order to get what he wants. That's the essence of Donald Trump. So, you know, it's the same guy. The guy that he promised, oh, I'm going to do something. I'm going to help people, right? I'm going to help people like your son. He was lying to him. He had no problem lying to the guy's face. He's got no problem lying to the country's face when it comes to this issue. He's not interested in doing anything to help people that are addicted to drugs. And that's a shame. Because, look, we're losing a lot of people. This is something that impacts communities all over the country, and especially in places that voted for Donald Trump in the first place. And it's something that we need to address. And we can't address it with doing more of what we did before, which is, of course, more criminalization, more arrests, more police, and as well as cutting health-related services. So Donald Trump, President Trump is definitely dropping the ball on this issue. But again, we sort of expected that because he doesn't really care about those people that he had promised to help. And again, it is a national tragedy that we actually have to have some real solutions to solve. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.